Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. When I taught English classes, we were told to focus on 4 skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Listening was always mentioned last, and it was seldom taught as a skill or as a focus of our attention. Right now, our country is divided, and people seem more interested in talking than in listening. But lately, I have run across several references in Zen publications to the importance of paying attention to what we hear and how we hear it. Tina Lear, in Having Real Conversations, says it's hard to listen without judgment, to tolerate ambiguity, paradox, in some cases ignorance. But if we're ever to experience any measure of true peace, this is something we all need to learn. Sarah Shaw, in The Text Talks, says listening can be quiet and receptive, yet active and awake at the same time. In my experience, it's just this kind of mindfulness that can be there when listening to a Buddhist text. I have a cousin who has helped me learn to listen. Tim and I have different religions and different political views. He's my youngest cousin, but I find him the easiest family member with whom I can engage in discussions about difficult topics: religion, politics, raising children. The reason the conversations go so well, despite our disagreements, is that Tim listens so attentively without any judgment. I always feel that rather than waiting to reply, as many of us do when we're listening, he is intent on understanding where I'm coming from, eager to get clear about who I am, what I believe, why I believe it. We can talk about our parents, siblings, friends, even the president, with complete comfort, even humor. The experience of having a conversation with Tim has taught me more about listening than reading whole books about it. In his essay, When to Speak and When to Listen, Oren J. Sofer tells us, when it comes to conversation, the force of our habits and the pressure of social settings can make it exceedingly difficult to maintain awareness. Here, mindfulness practice serves as a basis. We can use the arena of public conversation itself as a training ground for presence, using techniques to anchor awareness within the midst of exchange and developing the capacity for relational awareness. Consciously choosing when to speak and when to listen is essential for meaningful conversation. In some respects, it's the most basic conversation skill. How many times have you said something only to wish you could take it back moments after the words left your mouth? Or hit send on an email when it might have been better to let things cool off? It's equally important to have the courage to say our piece. When we don't speak up, we can feel as if we let ourselves or our loved ones down. Conversation is a dynamic interplay between each person's choice to speak or listen. When those choices are conscious and respectful, conversations tend to be more productive and enjoyable. Sofer calls this juncture the choice point between speaking and listening. With presence, every moment offers a choice. Our ability to maintain presence at the choice point takes practice. Sometimes the moment of choice races by like a road sign while we're doing 75 miles an hour on the freeway, and the impulse to speak can be so strong that it impels us to verbalize simply to release the internal pressure. If we tend toward the quieter side, it can feel as though those openings in conversation disappear before we can muster our voice. This is where mindfulness comes in. During Zazen, we learn how to observe unpleasant sensations, knee pain, sore back, which I'm experiencing right now, which is why I'm not with you in person, without immediately reacting. We develop the capacity to be aware of an impulse without acting on it. The anxiety we feel during conversation is usually rooted in deeper needs to be seen and heard, needs for safety, acceptance, belonging. The less confident we feel in meeting those needs, the more pressure we will experience to speak or remain silent. We may feel that if we don't say something right now, we'll never be able to do so. Or if we do say something, disaster and disconnection will surely follow. As we practice honoring our needs, we learn to trust ourselves. Thich Nhat Hanh tells us, deep listening is the foundation of right speech. In the Lotus Sutra, we are advised to look and listen with the eyes of compassion. Compassionate listening brings about healing. When no one listens to us, we become like a bomb ready to explode. The Bodhisattva Kuan Yin is the one who listens to the cries of the world. She has a quality of listening deeply without judging or reacting. When we listen with our whole being, we can diffuse a lot of bombs. Shortly after the tragedy of 9/11, Thich Nhat Hanh was asked in an interview what he would say to Osama bin Laden if he could sit down with him face to face. He replied, "The first thing I would do is listen. I would try to understand why he acted in that cruel way. I would try to understand all the suffering that had led him to violence. It might not be easy to listen in that way, so I would have to remain calm and lucid." And at this point, he goes off into an explanation of how he would also need to be surrounded by a community of supporters who were calm and lucid. He continues, "For the American people, I suggest we do everything we can to restore calm and lucidity before we respond to the situation. To respond too quickly may be very dangerous. The first thing we can do is cool the flames of anger and hatred that are so strong in us. We must look deeply at our present situation. If we're able to see the sources of suffering within ourselves and in the other person, we can begin to unravel the cycle of hatred and violence." Soon after I read Thich Nhat Hanh's reply, I had a long, angry, misinformed Facebook rant from my nephew about the COVID vaccine. I immediately started typing a response, but then I caught myself because Thich Nhat Hanh's words were fresh in my mind. I deleted my message. Mark Taylor reminds us that to know what a person says, we must hear what remains unsaid. If we cannot hear silence, we do not know how to listen. Silence is not just the gaps and spaces that punctuate sentences, but also within words as the lack that renders them fully articulate. Hearing silence means letting go of our preparation to reply and simply being open to receive what the other has to tell us through words or silence. That play between talking and not talking is tricky. Katagiri Roshi says, the opportunity to go deep into your life and practice real silence is always open to everyone. but people are always chattering and making noise. If one person chatters, the next person says, yeah, that's right, or I don't agree. I always say, keep your mouth shut. But even if you stop talking and stay silent, it's not real silence. It's silence conceptualized by you. Talking is still there because your silence is just the other side of talking. The real practice is seeing silence in terms of the whole universe. In real silence, there is communion. For example, if you suddenly encounter a deer in nature, you're shocked, you're speechless. There's an energy between you and the deer. The deer and you are in communication, but you can't say anything because there is no word. That no word is the world of true actual silence. Katagiri Roshi continues, there are many interesting things to do in the human world. To do as much as possible keeps you busy making lots of sounds. That's fine, but you have to understand that these sounds come from no sound. You have to know no sound because no sound is your nature. Then very naturally, you will want to come back from no sound and look at your own particular sound. Zazen is to come back to no sound. It is a vastness from which your capacity, your knowledge, your nature comes, just like spring water coming up from the earth. This is Zazen exactly. This is you. Thank you.